If you have ever stood at a bin with a jar in your hand, reading a printed date and wondering whether the thing inside is actually bad, sit down a minute. This one is yours. In the spring of 2004, a woman named Opal Tackett died in Texas County, Missouri at 93 years old. Her grandson drove down from Rolla to clear the house out. The cellar took him 3 days. There were jars on those shelves that his grandmother had put up, and behind those, further back in the dark, jars her mother had put up before her. Sacks of grain, a crock with a wooden lid, and a stone jar of honey with a cloth tied over the top of it. He was fixing to haul the whole lot to the dump, because that is what you do. A neighbor stopped him in the yard and told him to open the honey first. So he opened it. It had gone hard and pale and grainy, the way honey does when it sits. He set the jar in a pan of warm water on the stove for an hour, and it came back clear and gold, and it tasted exactly like honey, because that is what it was. Nobody in that family knows what year it went into the jar. The best anybody could work out was somewhere in the 1950s. 50 years in a cold cellar in a stone jar, and it was food. Today, most of us throw things out because a machine printed a date on the side, and we throw out something like a third of everything we buy. But here is the turn, and I'm going to be straight with you from the start, because the internet will not be. Almost nothing never expires. Most of what gets put on these lists keeps a long while under the right conditions, and rots under the wrong ones, and the people making those lists do not tell you which is which, because it makes for a worse video. There is a short list of things that genuinely cannot spoil, not because somebody preserved them, but because nothing alive can survive inside them. 4 of the 13 I'm about to hand you are in that group. The other 9 will outlive you if you store them right, and they will be ruined in 2 summers if you do not. I'm going to tell you which is which as we go. A man who says everything on his list lasts forever is a man selling you something. 13 foods, counted down. Now, 3 of them before we start. Number 7 is the reason the flour in your kitchen goes bad in a year, and your great-grandmother's did not. And that difference is not small. Number 3. Your great-grandmother made herself, from a plant growing in her own field, cooked down over a fire in the yard, and you cannot buy it in most stores in this country now. And number 1 is the only thing on this entire list that genuinely, chemically, never spoils. Not 30 years. Never. And there is a fair chance it is in your cupboard right now. One thing is missing from this list on purpose. Salt belongs on it and belongs near the top, but it already took the number 1 spot in my last video, so go and watch that one instead of me telling you twice. I am Roy Rideout, 3rd generation on this bottom land in southern Missouri. My people wrote in the margins of the farm almanac every year going back to the 1920s, what they put down, what it cost, and what was still good when they went back for it. I have got the whole shelf of them behind me. If you want the rest of these as they come, tap subscribe. Not for me, because the next one is one you are going to want. So the question is not what keeps. The question is what it costs you every year to throw away good food because a machine printed a number on it. 13 down to 1. Number 13. Dried pasta. Durum wheat, ground, mixed with water, pushed through a dye and dried down until there is almost no moisture left in it, somewhere around 12%, and that is the whole trick. Bacteria and mold need water. Take the water out, and there is nothing for them to work with. In the box it came in, sitting in your cupboard, you have got a couple of years before it starts tasting like the box. Sealed properly, in a bag with the air pulled out of it, kept cool and dark. you are looking at decades. Now I promised you honesty, so here it is. Pasta is not in the never group. It is in the outlives you group. The starch does slowly change and very old pasta cooks up a little chalkier. It is safe. It is food. It is just not immortal. Costs almost nothing. Cooks in 10 minutes on any heat source you can find, and it fills people up. Dry it out. Seal it up. Keep it dark. The next one is the same idea with a breakfast on the end of it. Number 12. Rolled oats. Rolled or steel cut, either one. Sealed away from air, light, and warmth. Oats will go 20 to 30 years and still be worth eating. Here is the part to get right. Oats carry a little oil in them, more than rice does, and oil is what goes off. So oats are not indefinite either, and the fresher the oat when you seal it, the longer it holds. Steel cut and old-fashioned rolled both keep better than the instant kind, because the instant has been cooked and cut and messed with. And every one of those steps takes a little life out of it. Oats are not only breakfast. They thicken a stew. They stretch a pound of meat into meatloaf for 6, and ground down they make a passable flour for a quick bread. A big sack costs a few dollars and feeds a person a long time. Now the one nearly everybody stores, and the version of it that nearly everybody gets. Wrong. Number 11. White rice. Sealed in a bag with the oxygen taken out, kept cool and dark. White rice will go 25 to 30 years and come out the other side as rice. It is one of the great keeping foods of the world, and it has been feeding people for thousands of years for exactly that reason. But here is the thing that matters, and it is the whole item. Brown rice does not keep. Brown rice still has the bran layer on the outside, and that bran holds oil. That oil goes rancid, and depending on how warm your house is, you have got somewhere between 6 months and a year before it turns. White rice has had that layer polished off. No bran, no oil. Nothing to go rancid. So the healthier rice is the one that will not store, and the plainer one is the one that will sit for 30 years. That is not what anybody wants to hear, and it is true anyway. If you keep brown rice, keep it in the cold and eat it. If you are putting rice away for the long haul, it is white or it is nothing. Pattern break. Everything so far is a grain or a starch, and the rule for all of them is the same. Dry, dark, cold, and no air. Now the next stretch is where the printed dates start lying to you outright, and where the argument about what is actually safe gets real. Number 10. Dried beans. Dry beans are the other half of rice, and the reason the two of them get said in the same breath. Between them, you get a complete protein for pennies, and dry beans put away properly will go 30 years and more. Now, the honest part, because there is one. Beans do not go bad so much as they go stubborn. As they age, they lose moisture and the skins toughen. And a bean that has sat 20 years will want a longer soak and a longer cook. And some of them will not soften right no matter what you do. They are still safe. They are still food. They are just harder work than they were. So the old-timer's answer is to eat out of the front of the shelf and put new in the back. And then your beans are never 20 years old in the first place. A pound of dry beans costs about $1 and change and makes 6 or 7 servings. Go and price 6 servings of anything else. Soak them, cook them, rotate them. Now, the one where the date on the package is doing the most lying. Number 9. Canned goods and the truth about the date. This one I want to do carefully because there is a wrong version of it going around, and the wrong version can hurt somebody. Here is what is true. On most canned food in this country, that date is a quality date, not a safety date. The Department of Agriculture says so plainly. It is the manufacturer telling you when they reckon the contents will still taste and look their best. It is not the day the food turns. A can that is sealed, undented, unrusted, and has been kept somewhere cool is safe a long way past that printed date. Years passed. The canning process itself cooked the contents and sealed them away from air, and there is nothing left in there to spoil it. Now, here is the other half, and this is the part the listicles skip. Time is not free. High-acid foods, which means tomatoes and most fruit, will slowly work on the inside of the can, and after a year or two, the quality drops off noticeably, and eventually the lining can fail. Low-acid things like beans, corn, and meat hold far longer. And the hard rule, which has no exceptions: if a can is bulging, leaking, badly rusted, or hisses or spits when you open it, you do not taste it to check. You do not feed it to the dog. It goes in the bin, sealed. That is what botulism looks like from the outside, and botulism does not care how careful the rest of your pantry is. Sealed and sound, eat it. Swollen or weeping, bin it. No middle ground. Number 8 is the grain your great-grandmother ground the morning she used it. Number 8. Whole dried corn, not cornmeal. Whole dried kernels off the cob, dried down hard. Whole corn will sit for decades. Cornmeal will not, and the reason is the same reason as the rice. The germ of the kernel holds oil, and once you grind it, that oil is exposed to air, and it starts going off inside of months, which is why your grandmother kept the corn whole and ground what she needed for the week. Whole corn is 3 foods, not 1. Ground coarse, it is cornmeal for bread. Ground fine, it is flour. And cooked with pickling lime, which I went through properly a couple of videos back, it swells up and slips its skin and becomes hominy, which is a different food again and keeps a family fed through a winter. 1 sack, ground as needed, 3 ways to eat it. Which brings us to the same argument about wheat, and this one is bigger. Number 7. Hard wheat berries. This is the one I flagged at the start, and here is why it matters. A whole wheat berry, which is just the grain exactly as it came off the plant, will keep 30 years in a sealed bucket in a cool room. 30 years. There are people eating bread today out of wheat their parents put away. The white flour in your kitchen keeps about a year. Whole wheat flour keeps a few months before the oil in it turns and it starts smelling like old paint. Same plant, same grain. The difference is entirely what has been done to it. A wheat berry is 3 parts: the bran on the outside, the starchy endosperm in the middle, and the germ, which is the little live bit that would have grown into a plant. The germ is where the oil is, and the oil is why whole grain flour goes off. In the 1870s, the roller mill came into American flour milling, and it could strip the bran and the germ off cleanly and cheaply at scale. What was left was white flour, and white flour would sit in a shop for months without turning, which is precisely what a shopkeeper wanted. It was a genuine commercial problem, and that was a genuine solution to it. But look at what actually happened. They took out the part that spoils, which is also the part with most of the nutrition in it, so that the flour could sit on a shelf instead of in your house. Your great-grandmother's answer to the same problem was to keep the whole grain and grind on a Tuesday what she meant to bake on a Tuesday. Nothing you did wrong. Somebody just had a bigger ad budget. Keep the berry, grind the week. Pattern break. That is the grain done. From here down, we are into the 4 that genuinely never spoil, plus 1 that comes close, and I will tell you exactly why each one is immune. It is not magic, and it is not marketing. It is chemistry. And once you see it, you will be able to look at anything in your kitchen and make a fair guess about it yourself. Number 6. Ghee, or clarified butter. Butter will not keep. Everybody knows that. What most people do not know is why. And once you know why, you can fix it in 20 minutes on your own stove. Butter is roughly 4/5 fat. The rest is water and milk solids, and those two things are the entire problem. Water lets things grow. Milk solids are protein and sugar, which is exactly what wants to grow in it. So you take those out, melt the butter slow, let it bubble until the water has cooked off, and the milk solids drop to the bottom and brown. Pour the clear gold fat off the top through a cloth. Leave the solids behind. And what you have in the jar is very nearly pure butterfat. That will sit at room temperature in a sealed jar for a year or more, without a refrigerator anywhere in the story. It is how butter was kept through a summer for most of human history. And it is still how a great deal of the world does it. It is not immortal. Fat eventually oxidizes and old ghee tastes flat, but it goes from a week to a year for 20 minutes of work. Cook off the water, drop out the solids, keep the fat. Now the first of the 4 that truly do not spoil. Number 5. Pure vanilla extract. Real vanilla extract, by the legal definition in this country, has to be at least 35% alcohol. That is not a flourish. That is the preservative. And at that strength, nothing microbial survives in the bottle. Sealed or opened in a dark cupboard, pure vanilla extract does not go bad. It gets darker and rounder, the way a whiskey does. Imitation vanilla is a different substance entirely. It is vanillin, made industrially, and it does fade. Here is the arithmetic because it looks backwards at the till. Real vanilla is dear, and the imitation is cheap, and yet the real one lasts forever and the fake one does not. Buy one good bottle and it will see out the rest of your baking life. And if you want to make your own, it is beans in a jar of plain spirit and a couple of months of patience. 35% alcohol. That is the whole reason it keeps. Number 4 is the same principle at twice the strength. Number 4, distilled spirits. Whiskey, plain grain spirit, rum, brandy. Anything above about 40% alcohol and sealed in a bottle is chemically dead. Nothing lives in it. Unopened and out of the sun, it does not spoil, and it does not become unsafe. 2 honest notes. Once you open a bottle, air slowly changes the flavor over years. It is still safe. It is just not what it was. And this only applies to plain spirits. Anything with cream or sugar or fruit in it has something in there that will turn. So a cream liqueur is not on this list. And I am not sitting here telling you to drink, friend. Spirit on a homestead shelf was never only a drink. It was the antiseptic before there was another one. It is how you pull the medicine out of a plant to make a tincture. It preserved fruit. And in bad years in this country, it was money that did not care what the bank was doing. Above 40%, sealed, in the dark. It does not go off. Pattern break. 3 left. All 3 are sweet. All 3 are effectively immortal. And one of them your great-grandmother made in the yard out of a plant she grew on purpose. That is the one coming next, and it is the one I would most like you to go and find. Number 3, sorghum molasses. Now this one is mine, and it is these hills. Sweet sorghum is a cane. It looks like corn until you get close. You grow it through the summer. You cut it in the fall. You run it through a press to squeeze the green juice out, and then you boil that juice down in a long, flat pan over a fire for hours until it thickens and darkens into syrup. It takes about 10 gallons of juice to make one of sorghum. Around here, that was a day the whole neighborhood turned out for. The mill, the mule going round, the fire, the smell of it going all afternoon. Every family went home with jars. It keeps because it is nearly all sugar and hardly any water, which we will come back to in a minute. Sealed in a jar, it is good for years and years, and a crock of it in a cool cellar essentially does not go off. And unlike white sugar, sorghum keeps what was in the plant. It carries real iron and minerals in it, which is why it was fed to children and to anybody who had been sick. Nobody banned sorghum. Refined white sugar got cheap, and then corn syrup got cheaper still. And a syrup that takes a field, a mule, a press, a fire, and a whole day of 6 people's labor cannot compete with a syrup that comes off a production line. The mills closed one at a time. There are still a few running in Missouri and in Kentucky and in Tennessee. And if you are anywhere near one in the fall, go. Nobody who tastes it goes back. Number 2 is what beat it. Number 2, sugar. Plain white granulated sugar does not spoil. Ever. And the reason is worth understanding because it explains 3 items on this list at once. Sugar is what is called hygroscopic, which means it pulls water towards itself and holds onto it. Put a bacterium or a mold spore into a pile of sugar, and the sugar draws the water straight back out of it through its own cell wall. The thing dies of thirst in a place that is technically drowning in moisture. That is why sugar preserves. That is what jam is. That is what candied fruit is. It is not that the sugar is sweet. It is that nothing can live in it. Sugar will go hard, and it will go into a lump you have to break with a spoon. And neither of those things is spoilage. Put a cut of apple or a slice of bread in the container overnight, and it softens back up. Brown sugar is the same thing with molasses stirred back through it. Same rules. It dries out rather than going off. A sack of it costs almost nothing, and it will be there when your grandchildren clear the house out. Which brings us to the last one, and the only true never on the list. Number 1, honey. Everything above this is either a very long time or a chemical hostility somebody manufactured. Honey is the only common food on earth that simply does not spoil, and it manages it 3 separate ways at once. First, water. Finished honey is around 17 or 18% water, which is not enough for anything to live on, and the sugar around it pulls at what little there is. Same trick as the sugar. Second, acid. Honey is properly acidic, and most of what would like to grow in it cannot tolerate that. And third, this is the part I find remarkable. The bee adds an enzyme to the nectar as she makes it, and that enzyme slowly produces small amounts of hydrogen peroxide inside the honey itself. The jar disinfects itself. Nobody designed that. A bee did it because it kept her winter stores safe, and it works just as well in a stone jar in a cellar in Texas County. That is why Opal Tackett's honey came back on the stove after 50 years. Nothing had happened to it because nothing could. 2 things you need to know. Crystallized honey has not gone bad. That hard, pale, grainy business is honey doing what honey does, and it is more common in the raw stuff, which means it is a mark of the real thing. Warm water and patience brings it back every time. Never boil it. And the one hard rule: do not give honey to a baby under a year old. Not a taste. Not on a dummy, not stirred into anything. Honey can carry botulism spores, which are entirely harmless to you and me, and a baby's gut is not developed enough to handle them. It is rare, and it is serious, and it is completely avoidable. Over 1 year old, no problem at all. Beyond the jar, honey has been put on wounds for as long as there have been wounds, and that is not folklore. Medical-grade honey is used in real hospitals today for burns and for wounds that will not close. Low water, acid, and a disinfectant the bee built in. That is the whole of it. Now before we finish, the other half of the job, and nobody does this part. Here are 4 things that turn up on every list like this one, and do not belong on any of them. Brown rice, already covered. The bran holds oil and you have got months, not decades. Whole wheat flour. Same. The germ oil turns and it goes bitter faster than almost anything else in a kitchen. Cooking oil of any kind. Vegetable, olive, seed, all of it. Oil oxidizes. A year or 2 is what you have got, and heat and light cut that in half. And nuts. Any nut. They are mostly oil. They go rancid quickly, and they will taste of old paint before you expect it. If a list tells you to lay in a drum of brown rice for the long haul, the person writing it has never opened one after 5 years. I would rather tell you the 4 things not to bother with than pad the number out to 30. So that is the 13. Pasta, oats, white rice, beans, canned goods, whole corn, wheat berries, ghee, vanilla, spirits, sorghum, sugar, honey. 4 of them genuinely never spoil. And now you know exactly why. The alcohol in 2 of them, the sugar in 2 more, and the bee's own enzyme in the last. Everything else on the list keeps for decades, if you keep it dry, dark, cool, and away from air, and rots in 2 summers if you do not. That is the whole science of it, and it fits on the back of your hand. Opal Tackett's cellar had somewhere over 200 jars in it when her grandson went down those steps. The family had always reckoned she kept it that way because she had come up in the Depression and never got over it. And that was not it at all. She had money in the bank and a house nobody held paper on. She had simply never once in 93 years seen the sense in buying a thing twice. That's not poor. That's paid for. This was never really about a printed date. It is about the difference between a house that throws away 1/3 of what it buys and a house that does not, and about knowing enough to tell which jar is fine and which jar goes in the bin. One of those you can learn in an afternoon. Now let me be straight before we close. I am not your doctor and I am not your food inspector. The bulging can rule is not advice. It is a rule. And the baby and honey rule is the same. Where I have given you a number, it is a good general figure, and your cellar is not my cellar. When in doubt, throw it out. That is not a failure of nerve. It is what your great-grandmother would have told you too. Do not go and buy all 13 this week. Buy 1. A jar of honey that will never go off, or a bag of wheat berries in a hand mill, or 1 good bottle of real vanilla that will see out your baking life. I have got sorghum in the cellar here that was pressed the fall before last, and a jar of honey I could not tell you the year of, and neither one has ever once been near a refrigerator. Tell me down below what came out of a cellar in your family and was still good. Somebody watching this has a better story than Opal's, and I want to read it. The one that comes up most is the one I build the next video around. Your people knew this. It just didn't get to you. If you want the next one when it lands, subscribe and it will find you. That's the whole trick. Don't let it go out of the family.